Hey guys, this is Isabella Moody, and if you did not already know, I was on a debate on the Tim Pool Culture War. It was me, Lauren Chen, Pearly Things, and Rachel Wilson. If you didn't already know that, well, here's your announcement. Now you know. And today we will be reacting to some beef that's been going on. By the way, guys, if you do not already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We will be posting a lot more as of recently. Leave a comment down below. Do all of the things because we have a lot to get into. But today, apparently, ever since the debate, there's been some beef, there's been some e-girl drama between Lauren Chen and Pearly Things, and we are here to discuss just that with my amazing husband, Josiah Moody.
Hello. I like how when you were giving that intro just now, you were like, leave a comment down below because we have a lot to get into.
Yeah, I mean, like, exactly.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why you should leave a comment down below, is because of how much we have to get into. But here we have Pearly Things and Lauren Chen getting into it on Twitter, getting into it on X. And, you know, we got to meet Pearl, hang out with Rachel, hang out with Lauren. Tim he's not really a hangout type of person, but it was good. Going into it, it didn't seem like there was too much, beef or anything, but then as soon as we got ready, as soon as the show was rolling, the gloves came off. Would you agree?
Oh, yes. As soon as the show ended, the gloves came off, too. I mean, it was a continuous battle that continues to this day.
Well, actually, after the show came off, the gloves came off, too. I mean, not came off. I don't know. I'm messing up the phrasing here. But then we ate together. Everything was fine. Everything was dandy.
This is women, right? Women in person claim everything's fine and dandy.
Oh my gosh, what nail polish are you wearing?
Just stupid stuff. And then they go home, they log on to X, and then the beef starts, and that's what we will be covering today.
Yep, and Tim Pool talks about that in this clip here.
In one tweet, she says, "Why do so many conservative women think it's their place to tell their husband when he is and is not following God? Blows my mind. Conservative women are so out of order." And this expands upon the other idea that Pearl has been tweeting about, where she says that many of these conservative women are feminists telling other men in other households how to lead their families. I do have some personal opinions about Pearl. She's very smart, but I do think, and I'm gonna say this right away, and a lot of people have expressed this, she seems hurt. I don't mean this as an emotional dig. I think Pearl Davis is jaded. I think that she's got a chip on her shoulder of sorts. And when you say something like that about someone, they usually take it as an insult. It's a dig at somebody. I don't know how else to say it. I think Pearl Davis's opinions are partially informed by a bias against women that may be rooted in jealousy. I mean, that's...
Oh my gosh. I feel like saying that it's rooted in jealousy doesn't make a ton of sense because of the fact that she's literally sat down and talked to people who have had their homes and their lives destroyed because of women taking everything in court.
Yeah, I mean, this is the constant claim we hear against Pearl from the conservative crowd when it comes to 25-year-old women are better looking than 35-year-old women. You will see in the replies all of these 35-plus-year-old women saying,
I'm so much better looking than Pearl.
Okay, cool. Pearl is not making the argument that anyone in their 20s is better looking than anyone in their 30s. She is saying that as an average, anyone in their 20s...
Actually, what she said specifically was that you were hotter when you were 25 than when you were 35.
Yes, but so many people, women online, will say,
oh, it's because Pearl's ugly and insecure and blah, 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 and then she's trying to attack prettier women.
No, she is stating fact. Women online take it personally, and that's what you're seeing here. I do not think that Pearl is actually insecure and saying all these things out of insecurity. I think she's pointing out things that she has seen based on all the interviews that she has conducted.
I like Tim. I've never had a bad interaction with him. Every single time, we hang out. It's cool. I think the psychoanalyzing that everybody tends to do is obnoxious. It's like,
oh, well, what happened? What's the past childhood trauma that led to her to think this way?
Relax. Not everything is that deep. We hear this all the time. It's anytime you take a stand against something immoral or something wrong, what is the first thing that happens? Oh, I don't support, homosexuality. It's against my religion. Oh, that's because you're gay. You're actually the gay one.
Who are we to pretend to be everyone's therapists online? And I get it, Tim, I feel like tends to lean liberal. It's probably because he's constantly wearing a yarmulke, so I won't hold it against him.
You said that Tim Pool leans a little liberal because he always wears a yarmulke.
Yeah.
Do you mean a beanie?
Yeah.
Did you think a beanie was a yarmulke?
Any round hat that someone constantly wears 24/7. You're a Hasidic Jew.
You genuinely think Tim Pool is Jewish because of the beanie?
No, I don't think he is. I know he is.
So
We are
ridiculous.
kidding here. We are joking.
Sincerely, I think Pearl Davis is very smart. I think she's right about a lot of the things she's bringing up. I think she's wrong about a lot. But let's talk about where we're at currently. This is ridiculous Twitter threads. So Pearl Davis tweets, conservative women are feminists. Here's what she says. The Lauren Chen admits here she thinks she should be able to tell another man how to talk to his wife in his home. That is out of order. Traditional women use religion to control men. Lauren Chen responded, it is not a feminist stance to believe husbands and fathers should act in a Christian manner toward their families. What a ridiculous notion, but sadly predictable when you remove God and responsibility from your worldview. This is an extremely important take. I agree with Lauren Chen more than you could probably agree. This is extremely important. The idea that there would be no social pressure from outside groups on other families is how you get the degeneracy we begin to see emerge today. Quite literally, women and men in the community should be telling other people in their community how to live. Yep.
Let's get your thoughts.
Okay, so I do think he makes a valid point that we need to be holding societal standards, especially as Christians. But the part that irks me is when he says women and men. Women.
Because you think that women shouldn't speak up if there's, an issue going on and they don't have that role to say that?
Yes.
Why?
And, my husband knows I am a baby Christian, so I'm trying to learn these things and sort through these things. However, I do think that God created women for man. We are made as a woman to help our man, and we should be following the lead of our man. So if if the man we are helping thinks that something is out of order, it is his duty to bring it to attention to the other man.
Okay, but what if he doesn't see that something's out of order and you notice it?
I don't think that's my place.
To even tell me to then go and handle it?
I think that, yes, as a wife, I could tell you what I'm thinking, and then it's up to you to go decide if you want to bring it to this other man's attention, to do something about it. However, I do think it's very important that a wife consults her husband instead of thinking that she's all in knowing and she knows what's best for everyone. Because as a woman, I know that our judgment is easily clouded by our emotions, and that's why I love you, my husband, so much, because I can trust that I can bring something to you and trust that you make the correct decision on what to do with that information.
So in context to the clip, which we'll play right here,
I think emotional abuse is a myth. I know you said
I agree with you on
seem
that.
to have a different perspective. Would you think emotional abuse is a valid reason to have a divorce if you support no fault divorce?
No, but something can be unacceptable behavior though, still within a marriage. Absolutely.
But who are you to tell a man how to speak to his wife in his house? Isn't that out of order?
I mean, you do that all the time. You call other men simps all the time.
But I don't tell them how to talk to their wife. That's your business.
That is absolutely not true.
Okay,
there are
name it. Go ahead.
for sure. There are tons of times where there will be actual men in your comments saying disagree, and you call them simps.
When I say simps, it typically means out of order. So typically when I say that, I'm referring to a pattern of behavior where they're putting women on a pedestal. That's typically what I'm describing.
But you'll say that about
this is
specific men.
But we're going to the what. But we're going to the
to-
what about. You're changing the topic.
No,
who
this
are
is
you?
the same topic.
No. It's a different because
It's the same topic.
my original question is, who are you to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his home?
Well, I don't.
Do you think you should be able to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his house?
I think that men should conduct themselves with biblical standards when it comes
But
to.
But answer my question. Do you think it's your place to tell men how to talk to their wives in their home? Answer yes or no.
I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that that a man should hold himself to a Christian standard in the home.
But, okay, so you do think it's your place. And this is what I mean when I say a lot of conservative women aren't really conservative.
That's true. What it ends up being is woman sad, man mean. Woman sad, man bad.
Because you're first from a biblical point of view, you are supposed to be obedient to your husband in all things. So before conservative women will talk about the disobedience, their first thing is their tone.
Yes.
So in context, do you think that Lauren is out of line for saying this? Because this is the point of contention right here, is that Pearl is saying conservative women think it's their place to tell their husband when he is and is not following God, which this is all in response to the video. See, that's taken out of context because Lauren Chen isn't telling her husband that he is or is not following God. Lauren Chen is evaluating how things happen with Steven Crowder from the ring footage, from what was released, and saying, this isn't Christianity. This is not your calling being fulfilled. This is not how you're called to handle these things as a husband.
So I think, and I could be very wrong here, that when you are in the public eye, you're going to get public attention and you're going to get criticisms, critiques, appraisal from people online. That's inevitable. So I think that Lauren could give her opinion on a situation, and I think that's valid. Do I agree with Lauren's take on the specific situation as it pertains to Steven Crowder and his wife or ex-wife? No.
Why? Why wouldn't you agree? Based off of what you know as a Christian and what that clip that they're talking about shows, why wouldn't you agree?
I mean, I would want to rewatch it, but when I did watch it, which was a while ago,
it's about the walking the dog.
And
she says, like, I don't feel love from you, and he says, I don't love you.
I don't think it's like emotionally abusive.
But the question is not whether or not it's emotionally abusive or not. The question is whether or not it's Christian or not. Because that's what this topic is about, in case you haven't been following along, Isabella.
You already thought.
This topic is about whether or not Lauren has if she's in the right or in the wrong for saying that what Steven did in the context of this clip is not right as a Christian. And obviously, when we talk about patriarchy, the only patriarchy that we want to be held to by a standard within society is biblical patriarchy. Biblical patriarchy is that a husband is supposed to love his wife as Christ loved the church. And I don't remember the scripture or the parable where Jesus says that you didn't walk the dog, so I don't love you anymore. That's not how Christ loved the church. How Christ loved the church is that he died on the cross. His body was broken and his blood was shed for remission of sin. And even though one of his own disciples, Peter, had betrayed him and denied him, he still died on the cross for Peter, and he still died on the cross for me, and he still died on the cross for you, despite the fact that we're disobedient, we're sinful, and we're not worthy of it. So in regard to this specifically being handled as a Christian, and looking at it, and this got released to the public, it's very obvious that Steven Crowder, who calls himself a Christian, professes to be a Christian, was clearly walking in a state of sin, if he really is a Christian, which who knows, when he told his wife this.
I mean, that's not love.
It very well could be that he still loved her and that he still, loves her or whatever in that state. What matters is that he was clearly sinning and violating his sacrament of marriage by saying that he didn't love her because of her disobedience. See, that's the issue here that I continually run into, is that there's not accountability for men whenever it comes to this side of things. Steven Crowder doesn't is it emotionally abusive? No, I don't agree. Lauren Chen called it emotionally abusive. I don't agree that it's emotionally abusive. I think words like emotionally abusive and the power that they hold, especially in the legal system, is very damaging. I think it's bullshit. I think we have the freedom of speech, and I think that applies to telling your wife, I don't love you. And I don't think that means she gets to take half or take the kids or do anything like that, because that's ridiculous. But I think that Steven Crowder clearly should be called out by Christians and, point out the fact that he was walking in sin, he was acting in a sinful behavior, and you're fucking lucky that God and Jesus doesn't do this shit to you, because you're disobedient, you're prideful, you're arrogant, you're a dick. And does Jesus just all of a sudden say, well, I'm pulling my love from you? No, he doesn't. He continues, like it says in Romans, when sin abounds, grace abounds. He continues to be gracious. He continues to be loving. Stepping into that calling of loving your wife as Christ loves the church, it's not easy. It's impossible. It's extremely difficult to ever do. It won't happen, but that's what you're supposed to be striving for. So we as Christians can evaluate the situation, and we can obviously say, hey, dude, you're walking outside of your calling as a husband, and especially as a Christian husband.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree more with what you're saying. And I guess my response would be okay, Steven Crowder as a Christian is walking outside of his role. He's not loving his wife as Christ loved the church. So what is she to do? How should she react? Because I think him not knowing she's recording and posting it online is psychotic.
How should she react to the fact that he said that?
Yeah.
It seemed like she reacted by walking away, which I think is a reasonable thing to do in a heated moment like that. I don't think this was the reason why they got divorced or anything like that. I think this was released to paint a picture of Steven as this emotionally abusive monster so that she could have more leverage in court. But I mean, how should she react? She should just go to her room and go clean and go do dishes until her husband calms down and can realize, wow, I do love my wife, and that was messed up for me to say, and he shouldn't have said that. However, get submitted, go walk the fucking dog. Yeah. I don't care if you're pregnant. This is not how shit flies. Right. And you're not going to use that and hold that over my head to be disobedient and to not do the job. That's not how things work. So it really comes down to the thick of it, which we don't know. It's all speculation. But if this were me in the case, I wouldn't have let you walk out until my point was conveyed that you do what you're supposed to do, whatever I tell you to do, because that's your job, is to submit, do it with a smile on your face. I don't care. And I wouldn't have let you leave. Mm-hmm. I would have, you would have had to eat whatever mean things I would have said. And then the job would have got done. And then afterwards, after the cooling down process, I would have, repented to God and smoothed things over with you for the sinful behavior. That's how things would have went down in that situation. Now, if she refuses to be submissive, there's not much you can do. And that's why the whole Crowder situation is hard. And I think people are taking Hillary's side, and that instantly paints them out as a feminist, because if you're unwilling to submit, you're tying your husband down. There's not what can he do in that situation by your utter refusal to submit?
Yeah.
And the court system removes all of his leverage, it removes all of his power. And so that's the issues that we agree with Pearl on, is like, if there's an unsubmissive wife and then she's empowered by the legal system, obviously that's a huge reason why people like Pearl don't advocate for marriage, because you're cucked.
Yeah, and personally, one of my biggest pet peeves is these entitled pregnant women, these entitled mothers. And we could speculate whether or not Hillary Crowder was submissive, but I would feel confident saying that she's not. The fact that she feels so empowered to say, I can't walk a dog while I'm pregnant. Hello, walking is literally good for your pregnancy. Literally, it's good for it. The fact that you are going to make a big fuss about walking a dog because you're pregnant just tells me everything I need to know about your heart posture in a marriage. And I know that we're only going to get a little snippet, a little sneak peek of what's going on within their marriage.
But I also don't think that that's a fair analysis either, based off of a small snippet. Because just like I was defensive of Steven and how you're defensive of Steven, it's fair to say that she's also could be momentarily walking in a role of unsubmissiveness and sinning as well.
If you're a conservative woman, why would you take advice from a 26-year-old unmarried spinster? But my point is, if you're a conservative Christian woman seeking to have a family and you look to Pearl Davis, that's how you would see her. And you'd say, her opinion's completely meaningless to me. So then who actually is Pearl Davis talking to? She's criticizing conservatives to non-conservatives. Pearl is an adult human female in her prime years deciding to start a business and run a company and hire employees instead of starting a family. And that is certainly the antithesis of conservative women. That is the feminist archetype, isn't it, girl boss?
We're obviously getting some digs from Tim, but it's all valid.
Yeah, I mean, this just reminds me of how I used to act and behave before meeting my husband, before becoming Christian, is I would claim to hate feminists. I labeled myself as an anti-feminist. However, I was living out the feminist dream.
If you remember Pearl in the early days, she didn't used to shit on traditional marriages. She didn't used to shit on conservatives. It used to always be feminists. But then what happened was that the conservative feminists got triggered by it and they got upset by it. And so then she realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of feminists that are acting like they're traditional conservatives or whatever. And then she just reworked it and just started, coming after tradcons. And that's obviously the conservatives' own fault because they want to let everybody in and they're so happy that, Dave Rubin, former liberal, is now, who's a gay Jew person, whatever, is now on our side and, thinks that Trump is cool. Let's let him in. We're so happy. And Pearl has an entire, new market where she's just attacking the traditional conservatives who aren't really trad, who aren't really conservatives, but, it's the jumbo shrimp oxymoron thing.
Yeah, and what's funny is these people will say, oh, Pearl, you're not married, you don't have kids. Who are you to give us advice? Okay, tradcons like Alex Clark, you're not married, you don't have kids. Who are you to tell people to get married and have kids? I was guilty of this until I became Christian, got married, and had a kid, okay? If you are going to say that Pearl can't give advice because she doesn't lead by example, then you better bet that you better be living by example yourself.
Yeah, I think the entire thing needs to be thrown out.
Yeah, who cares?
I think the entire thing I think it's ridiculous to even say, well, you can't comment on this thing because you're not married and you don't have kids. Well, shut up. Because this is the same leftist argument that is, you don't have a uterus, so you can't tell me about abortion. I think the fact that these women often go to that dig whenever it comes to Pearl just points out the fact, once again, that they're not really traditional conservatives and that they're actually feminists.
Yeah.